are or the rest of your team's intentions. You need to play for what they're actually doing. So a lot of the times it's very easy to fall into traps where you're doing something expecting some amount of follow-up or expecting some of your teammates to react a certain way, and they just straight up don't. And that feels awful, right? Hmm. 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 Yeah, for sure. All right, awesome. Do you have any thoughts, any questions, anything else you might want to talk about before we just jump into some gameplay? It's a hard map. I don't blame you. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, sure. It's I have a very optimistic approach, where I'd say like ideally you should stay in comms until people prove themselves to be asshats and flamers and ragers or whatever. So it's easy to say that, but then the reality is, and depending on different ranks, depending on different times of day, this could be different. But the reality is, you probably will have people like that in a decent amount of your games, and it is an unfortunate reality of playing any online video game, right? So ideally you can add communication to part of your decision making tree, whether that's you communicating to your team or hearing the communication of your team to help adjust your decision making, basically. I would say communication should be the last step of information that you're gathering. So first, before you even think about like reacting to what your team is communicating, you already need to see what's in front of you. You already need to see where your team is. It doesn't matter if your Ana is saying like, "Hey, there's a ball on me," if you don't even know where your Ana is in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So communication should be thought of as like the cherry on top when it comes to helping you decide how you want to play the game. It shouldn't be necessary, at least not in ranked. We're not talking about the Overwatch League, of course, but in ranked,
Mm-hmm.
it usually isn't necessary. So it is nice sometimes, but maybe that doesn't offset the times it's tilt inducing or completely raging and stuff like that. So I would say it's definitely not necessary, but eventually, of course, you should work your way back into comms when you feel more confident in your own play, when you feel more comfortable dealing with maybe some baby ragers in the voice chat and stuff like that. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Like I said, it shouldn't be the thing that's holding you back, but it can be a nice little bonus to your play. And yeah, talking very quickly about Watchpoint Gibraltar, since this is a very unique map, I think it is worth going over a few like map specific basics here. So the thing that makes Watchpoint Gibraltar such an interesting map, in my opinion, and to a lot of people, interesting means bad or frustrating or annoying to play, is that there's no real flank routes on any map and any point of the map. There's like a few on second and third point, but like on first point, there's one lane, right? The payload moves in
Yeah.
this direction, and you can't really go off to the side. Like you could argue this is a flank route, but realistically, this isn't getting you any valuable space. This isn't getting you any valuable space like on the ground. you have to walk through the point, meaning these long, straight ahead sight lines are very easy to hold for defenders.
Yeah.
What it lacks for in flank routes, it makes up for in high ground potential, obviously. So there's almost like 3 layers of high ground here. There's like underground where the cart goes. There's a sort of like mid ground layer where you use for a lot of rotations and trying to take the space. And then there's like these peaks on the high grounds up
Those
here
high
and this
grounds, yeah.
catwalk back here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the actual high ground. This is what the space you want to fight for, or the space you need to be holding as defenders, or worried about when you're walking into their sight lines. You don't want to be on the ground in the valley of death getting shot down on by a soldier on a Roadhog Echo, obviously, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that,
when just to sort of wrap up this point really quick,
yeah, go ahead.
to understand how that space affects engagements means understanding that you need to think about space more vertically instead of laterally a lot of the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that much is obvious just from looking at the map, as you can see, but it means setting up stuff like double angles or understanding sight lines is very, very different than playing a normal map type. There's not going to be situations where you're baiting an enemy team into a crossfire. That doesn't really happen on Gibraltar. There's not going to be situations where you're struggling to push around a corner because the whole enemy team is sitting around that corner. They're going to be sitting above you and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's not walking around a corner. It's walking into high ground sight lines and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
this is obviously very key on second point where the whole map is high ground sight
It's just
lines, right?
people coming from
Everyone's up
everywhere.
here just in their tower shooting down on you.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that when you can't flank around the map and get around them? How do you deal with that when you are very limited in your rotational abilities? And this is why, well, this is partially why Winston is so good on defense, because he can jump up and down onto the high grounds and he doesn't need to hold up here. He can threaten basically all 3 tiers of ground at the same time when he has his jump available, which is really, really strong. And has decent staying potential compared to something like Wrecking Ball or Diva.
Yeah. He can like hold the space a
So
little better than Wrecking Ball, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. So a core gameplay loop on defense here, very common stuff to do on Winston, is to start like zapping at this corner, jump back up for safety, maybe play like here if they're trying to rotate here, zap them wherever they're trying to approach, whether that's here, 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 and then be able to jump back into your honest sight lines and help your team use these long sight lines to your advantage by just playing far into them, but still within these sight lines, and then jumping back close into them to get better resources and
Yeah.
get healed up and stuff like that.
So using that,
So
I don't remember what it's called, but that where I'm standing at right now, using it as like a reset.
yeah, exactly.
Site
So
platform.
yeah, I
Okay.
mean, callouts are one thing. Biggest thing is like this is called blue box just because it's a blue box. People
Yeah.
call this all kinds of things from like platform to stage to I don't know, just high ground in general,
Yeah.
stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, does
That
that
makes sense.
answer any immediate questions you might have
Yeah.
about the
Like
map?
already, like I already know like I'm going to approaching it differently. Because I hold that high ground to watch them from going up onto, I don't know what that
Mm-hmm.
second level is, like mid level to get to the high ground. A
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of people like to do that. But then I get
Around
pushed
here.
out. Yeah, like the Reaper gets on bridge and he pushes me out fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So like now, like so when I was thinking, okay, resetting up there, like it's very crucial. Like I want to clear that off, right? Or but at the same time, the cart's coming around the corner, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
pushing cart while I'm trying to deal with a Reaper
Yeah, for
up
sure.
there. But
So
go
in
ahead.
that case
Yeah.
too, you have a very common main tank problem, and this is also something that's very common for Reinhardt. So hopefully should be fairly easy to relate to, where multiple threats are coming in at the same time. Let's just say like worst case scenario, the Reaper's like coming across here to the very high ground and going to threaten your Ana. In the
Yep.
meantime, their Lucio is pushing cart, and the rest of their team is like their soldiers setting up this way. Like there's all these threats coming in at you all at once. What are you supposed to do? The number one thing is don't feed, obviously. Don't stay indecisive. Don't stay in the middle of all of these threats all at once and just get peppered down and forced to jump back before you do anything. You need to make a fast decision to decide where you're going to commit and how
Mm-hmm.
that commitment's going to look like. So the concepts of ankle isolation still apply. So if you want to deal with this threat, you get away from this threat. If you want to deal with this threat, you get away from both these threats. If you want to deal with like you pick one door to go stuff basically. You don't try to do all three and
Yeah.
you don't wait too long to try and decide which one should be more valuable. The fastest way to decide which is more valuable is to decide who is going to be dealing the most team-wide damage to your entire team, not just to yourself. So it's very tempting to think of Reaper as like your main threat, but if he's just pushing you out, then this soldier's probably a bigger threat to the rest of your team, and he's the one that should be stuffed. And also just you'll probably rather duel a soldier rather than a Reaper as Winston
Yeah.
as
Oh
well,
yeah,
of
for
course,
sure.
and stuff like that. If there's no one peeking at the same time and there's someone on payload, maybe that becomes the priority because you don't need to think about other threats, and that's the only thing popping up. If there's all 6 of them rotating here, maybe you don't dive as aggressively to try and hold them, but you know that this is where the main threat's going to be, so you start setting up accordingly. Maybe you start flanking around this way, maybe you get a little bit aggressive, maybe you drop down to the ground and get ready to jump behind them and things like that.
Yeah.
You can change position early without committing, as long as you know where you want to be holding, where you want to stop them from approaching, basically.
Yeah. So.
Um, and the key part about this is that it's very, very easy to feed as Winston
Oh
through
yeah.
indecision.
Yep.
It's very easy to just wait too long and miss your window, or just not make a decision at all and get poked out. Because you're so heavily tied to your cooldown, you need to always think about where you're going to be jumping, where you're going to be bubbling, how long you're going to be holding that space, and then where you're going to be going next.
Yeah.
There's like
It's,
always like 2-3 steps into the future you need to be thinking,
I
because
know.
your
Yeah.
cooldown usage has such big repercussions. It either turns you into a feeder or it makes you carry the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the biggest issue. Like that was another issue, probably. Like in this fight, was my intention, like being intentional with the rocket jump, because I try to like reposition with rocket jump to like set up and like posturing or stabilizing and stuff. But this one got really. This one was just so much harder to do that. It felt like I
Yeah.
was getting
And again,
pressured almost
it's because
constantly.
you can't do easy things. Like, I mean, if this was a normal map, you'd be able to like jump in aggressively and then like kite around a corner this way and drop aggro and then jump back this way and use like the lateral movement of the map.
Yeah.
Because this map is one directional, you have to go in and then go out the same way, which makes you that much easier to read and that much easier to punish if they're expecting you.
Yeah.
So you need to be really, really cautious about that and understand that the amount of time you can stay in the fight is usually a lot lower because you have less options. And you need to be very, very conscious of when, oh, my Ana dropped off high ground. Now all of a sudden it's even shorter, or I need to jump further back to get healed. Things like that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
All right, I think that's enough ranting. Are we ready to get in some gameplay?
All right. All right. Yeah. Here we go.
All
Sorry
right, let's do it.
about this gameplay that you're about to witness.
No, all good. That's why we're here. Checking to see. We see a Reaper. We don't want to deal with Reaper. This is good.
Yeah.
Very, very early bubble usage. So a big thing here, anytime we're using bubble, number one thing, we should make sure we're not... So this would be the same as... This is like a more punishing version of Ryan just shielding damage. If you're just shielding damage, and especially when it's damage you could avoid it by like just walking away from it, getting around a corner, that's wasted shield health. This becomes even more relevant on Winston because it's not just shield health, it's a whole cooldown.
Yeah.
And now you don't have this bubble for 12 seconds. And now, even though this Reaper is a big threat to you, it's funny, we were just talking about this concept. Look at what your team is thinking about. Your team is thinking about the point right now. They're thinking about stopping the payload. They're thinking about shooting down your Rhine. And they're not going to be using your bubble other than this Echo. And the shitty part is even if they were paying attention to this Reaper, he can just get away with his shift button.
Yeah.
He's under no threat here. This is a very safe rotation from him. So it means your attention is almost like an overreaction to what he's doing. He hasn't really committed anything, and he's not really threatening anything yet, but we've already given him one of our best resources to deal with him.
Okay.
We're overreacting
Just
to
right
his aggression
away.
because we're a little bit too tunneled on a singular threat.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. He just runs away. And now all of a sudden we can't do things like hold the payload, zap 3 people, hold bubble, and then jump back up.
Yeah.
Now that's just out of our gameplay loop. Now we just have to sit here. Maybe we even need to fall back since this Reaper's still here and they're starting to jump us.
Yeah.
So again, I think optimal thing to do here would be definitely recognize the Reaper. Maybe if you're in comms, you could call it out and things like that. But I would still rather see you save bubble. And instead of just like even thinking about the Reaper, just like keeping your distance from him. Oh, he's approaching me. Oh, I'm walking away from him. You don't need to be directly up here. You're not a shield tank. You don't need to shield your Roadhog or anyone else who is up here. So you can be a little more flexible with your position. You can drop down here. You can look for drops on cart. If they weren't already threatening that space, you could look to drop behind and then jump to cart, stuff like that. If you needed to really get out, you could always just run away, of course. But you can still stay flexible in your options here as long as we don't commit anything too early.
Yeah. Okay.
We annoyed the Reaper off. This is good.
Again,
All right, we're holding the space here. We need to think.
Yeah.
The bubble there, because we know we're already falling back, I think the bubble was like a little wasted, but you know that you're probably not going to be doing anything aggressive anyway. So using this bubble to guarantee that they don't get any more kills or they don't chase anything isn't the worst. But again, like it was probably unnecessary, like you said.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this bubble here, what damage are you shielding? Who are you shielding on your team? Nothing and only you is not usually the answers you want to go for,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Better options here, like even just slight options with like if you wanted to get aggressive, if you wanted to do the same thing of like holding this high ground space, maybe doing things like making this res easier to do. You could again still be doing things like ignoring the Reaper, dropping down to cart, using your bubble to shield the soldier damage and isolate them, get some big zaps on point, hopefully stall out long enough to get your next jump back. Since all this attention is going to be on you, this space is going to be free for your team. Maybe they'll walk up, maybe they'll get some shots, maybe you'll get a kill, and then you jump out.
Yeah. But it's getting that attention that I'm
Exactly.
supposed to be doing as main tank. Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost playing like we're like a shield tank right now. We're playing very far back with our team, and we're playing to almost just hold space instead of actively threaten it. But without a big rectangle in front of us, that's much harder to do. So here, big thing was not knowing where your Ana was.
Mm-hmm. I was
When we
looking
got
for it
pushed
when I
back here,
died. Yeah.
so biggest thing whenever you're making a defensive rotation is understanding how it affects the rest of your team. So right here, we could have identified their Ana was with us, obviously, but then the biggest thing is if our Ana was down there with us, we should be fighting for her space down here, not a space like this when we don't have the resources to hold it. This would be default positioning if we were still waiting for them to come in, but they're fighting right now. This is a team fight, and we need to either just 6-man run, get out, go back to spawn, or die, or we need to decide if we're committing to this. Because you used your jump to sort of stay in this space, it's telling me that you want to stay involved in this fight, even just a little bit, even just to hold this space and go in aggressively with your next set of cooldowns if you get healed up. But we're not accounting for our team.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of situation where this is entirely within your control. This doesn't rely on comms. This doesn't rely on your Ana yelling at you. This doesn't rely on them making poor decisions that you couldn't react to. This is entirely under your control. This is you using your shift button and not knowing where you're going for what reasons.
Yeah.
So
So,
anytime you're committing either of your cooldowns as Monkey, they're so huge. You need to know what exactly you're doing it for or who exactly you're doing it for. So in this case, if you're doing it for your Ana, for your Mercy, I would say just like drop your bubble, back up, hold this corner, get as low as you need to, but keep your healers up, like body block so they can't get chased down. And then if you need to jump away, you can like jump back defensively here, or if you're able to hold the space and you still have jump, maybe you can jump back up to here or here after you've solidified your backline.
yeah. So we're not, yeah, our team's not stable, and I'm not even considering it by jumping out. I'm trying to stabilize myself,
Exactly.
but not my team.
A good rule of thumb to follow is anytime. So when a fight starts, you should be at full resources. You should have all your cards ready to play and all that kind of good stuff. When we're in the middle of a fight, or obviously like mid-fight is a term thrown around a lot, you need to be very cautious about your resource usage, and you need to make sure that it's not selfish, especially as a tank. Unless you're playing, I guess, Roadhog or something like that. But when you're
Yeah.
playing Winston or Diva or tanks with good utility, you need to be finding reasons to come together as a team, and more often than not, tank resources are one of those best reasons. If a team finds a bubble in the middle of a team fight, a friendly bubble that is, they're going to be able to shield dance up and down. They're going to understand how much safer their space now is, and they're going to be able to heal you better. They're going to be able to stay in the fight. They're going to be able to find an aggressive movement eventually, but that's going to happen a lot more coordinatedly just by seeing where you are as a tank and seeing how you're using your resources. People love to look at their main tank and ask themselves, how can I help my main tank, or how should I be playing for my main tank? So make sure that you're thinking about them in the same vein. You're not forcing them to play too awkwardly.
Yeah. So the best call then in this situation was to come out of that door, bubble in front line and let my supports get back and into a better position and back up with them once there's
Yeah.
like to be able to. So okay.
Because, yeah, this whole fight has basically just been a whole snowball. They've been pushing the cart nonstop. We've been on the back foot nonstop. We haven't found a reason to go aggressive. We will never find a reason to go aggressive until we stop this momentum.
Yeah.
until we either like hold them somewhere at a corner and we can set up defensively, or until we 6-man reset and then come back into the point almost like attackers, or maybe if we punish someone for going over aggressive. So like our honor or mercy, get behind this corner here and you're just body blocking, and then maybe Anna sleeps and antis the monkey and then he dies, then we could go push back out. But holding the space right here, right now, is too aggressive. And then obviously as well, in addition to knowing where your team is and what space they're able to support you in, knowing what threats you're jumping into is just as important.
Yeah.
But looks like they're going to be snowballing all the way through first point. This is the point where we just commit to resetting. There's no point trying to save this diva, trying to save this mercy. Is she going for a res? I don't know why.
I know. They're so bold, and mercies are at this rank.
Well, he did kill their mercy. Nice bubble to isolate this Winston, but realistically, again, because we're so split, this isn't even a guaranteed kill. If we were 6 people set up behind here, this is punishing that Winston and Reaper's over aggression. Right now, this is just slowing their roll. This is taking the wind out of their sails, which is equally good, but will not result in a kill and means you have less time to stay here. This means the Reaper is going to be comfortable focusing you. This is just to basically take their attention away from holding W and instead turn it on you long enough to give your team time enough to respawn and regroup and stuff like that. So I think this is a really good bubble, really good aggression here, forcing Reaper Wraith. And yeah, we didn't overcommit or anything. We are setting up for our next. Would like to see us act a little bit sooner there. Even if you don't see the exact route in which you jump, you should have. I mean, how long have you been playing Overwatch?
Oh, year and a half, let's say.
Okay. That's not the longest. Obviously, the game's been out for a bit longer than that, but you should have a good lay of the land when it comes to map geometry, right? Like, you know what second point Gibraltar looks like. You have dreams or maybe nightmares about it. You can visualize where on the map you'd like to be and how you can get there. So stuff like having to look around just for repositioning should almost never happen.
Yeah, I was trying to get down here. And then I realized, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to get to ship like from that jump. And then I had to go to like, okay, what's my second option? And yeah, that's when. So my first choice was ship originally, but I was directly underneath it. Yeah, trying to get a good view, and then but going back. But yeah, it should have been a lot quicker, where I wanted to actually set up.
So, when I say quicker, I actually don't mean like literally faster. I just mean more decisive. So the worst part about indecision down here is that you're putting mental focus on this repositioning decision, which should be like a free action. You should be able to think about this and execute it without even trying too hard, right?
Yeah, I got
you. So
okay.
Unless maybe like you're going for crazy Lucio wall rides or ball rollouts or something crazy like that.
Right. Yeah.
But for something as simple as Winston jump, it's point and click. So the danger of being caught in this decision tree for too long is the spam damage we took from the soldier, is maybe a Reaper getting on us unexpectedly. The more we're thinking about something that's not directly team fighting, the more we're giving up space and time to the enemy, and the more easily we get caught off guard by stuff. So if you wanted to get ship, honestly, best decision here would be to first understand that you're not well angle isolated, and your first step is to get to cover. From there, you can take your time. You can walk all the way to high ground if you wanted to. Or you could jump up here, go aggressive on the soldier. Or you could just back up and then jump up on the ship here. Yeah. This is not a crucial moment where split-second decision is going to win or lose a team fight. We're still regrouping, right? So all you need to know is that your priority is to go hold high ground so that your team has an easy time coming out of spawn. From there, you can just take your time making that decision, but it means other things don't drop. It means we don't ignore the soldier damage and we go to cover quicker. Yeah. It means we start thinking first about where our team is, how long their spawns are. Maybe even jumping ship might be too aggressive here because look how far our range damages our soldier. He's not even going to be able to use the space. You might get poked out before our soldier's even coming out to peek. Things like that.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
So we can't even not even think about like engaging or trying to get a pick because we still have to stabilize. We have to be thinking about getting our group together and setting up for that. And
like I said, this bubble down here was perfect for that. It's just the way I saw you almost like frantically looking around means there's a lot going on in a relatively slow part of the game. So we just need to take a step back, relax, and focus on our decision-making process. I don't think I've covered this with you yet, so let's talk about the decision-making process, and I'll introduce my 3-step plan.
Okay.
So the first step in making any decision, from the decision to boot up Overwatch the day of, or to choose Winston in this game, or things like that, or to go for this jump. The first step to making this decision is information. Taking in information, looking around, seeing where your team is, seeing where the enemy team is, understanding the team compositions and what potential they have. Oh, obviously I need to know where the soldier is, so I don't want to stand in its LOS. I need to know where the Reaper is, so I don't need to jump away from him. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to know where my Ana or my Baptiste is, so I can get healing. Simple stuff, relatively, but then it gets more complicated as team fights go on, of course, and stuff like that. Then you actually start thinking. So you take in information, then you process that information. This is the take a breath. You take time to let that information absorb. You're not constantly pressed to make decision after decision after decision. You need space to work with, and sometimes that means slowing down your play a little bit. Sometimes that means just taking a step back, but it means also understanding that you might need to reassess situation as information changes. So the longer you wait to make a decision, the weaker your initial information is going to be. Whether that's positions, heroes, ultimate charge, whatever. Everything changes as fights go on, as team fights develop, basically.
Yeah.
And then we got the easy part. Execution. You do the thing you decided to do. Basically, that comes down to how good you are mechanically, and stuff like that. But at this point, this is no longer a brain thing. This is like a hands and fingers thing. This is, you've already decided what you want to do. We don't need to frantically look around and keep guessing what we're trying to do as we're about to execute it. You already visualize what you're trying to do. You understand why you're doing it. And ideally, you've already anticipated what's going to happen after you do the thing. So after you jump up here, your soldier's going to come up from spawn, and then we're going to push out ship together, and we're going to dislodge this enemy soldier. The 3-step plan, like, into the future. And this isn't going to happen 90% of the time. Nothing goes according to plan half the time in Overwatch. So even if it doesn't work out the way you intended, it's still very important to have those intentions. And again, the biggest thing I want to work on with you is taking time to get that information and giving yourself enough time to process it. If we're consistently rushing ourselves, of course we're not going to be making the best decisions.
Yeah.
And this is such a small thing to talk about. Like, realistically, you're not getting punished for this, obviously. But I can just tell from the way, like, even just you're moving your camera around, you look very indecisive.
Yeah. I think it's just we're getting snowballed so much, and I'm like, what do I even? Yeah, I'm probably very overwhelmed right now.
You're right. The easy way to play Winston is to just jump at enemy, zap, jump out.
Yep.
When you can't do that, what do you do? Right? That's the big question right here. So the biggest thing, I think, like stuff like this, stopping snowball, isolating aggressors, another way of putting this. We talked about this in our fundamentals session, where it's like if someone's going aggressive, or like you're able to boop someone in aggressively, putting in a bubble to isolate them is great at making them stop being aggressive. So this is really good stuff, but just understanding, again, like your potential, and then the next steps is how we take that further.
Yeah. Especially as
any questions?
Isolating. Yeah, well, I don't think so, but I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Like, because I get isolating when trying to engage and have the momentum, but isolating to take the momentum away is like
just as effective.
Just as effective, yeah.
A good way of thinking about it is who's using the movement. Is it you using movement aggressively to isolate, or is it them using movement into you to isolate? Either way, when there's movement involved, you can isolate. Whether that's your movement as a jump, or the enemy movement as their jumps, or their speeds, or their Reaper TPs, or just someone walking up too far. That's their movement that you're then isolating. Yeah. But there needs to be some movement. You can't isolate someone if all 6 of them are stacked together, obviously. Yeah. Unless you're a god at micro-positioning your bubble or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely not. Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah.
It's okay, we'll get there. So again, we're very focused. So a big difference, you mentioned having trouble dealing with Ball. In my opinion, the biggest difference between Ball and Winston is Ball is just always doing something, because of, obviously, he's not as tied to cooldowns as Winston is. He doesn't have a big bubble he needs to wait for. But also he has guns. He can actively threaten people with his weapons, like someone like this Reaper. Like, you could actually take a duel with that Reaper and force him to Wraith, versus Winston, you're never going to force him to Wraith if he doesn't want to, right?
Yeah.
So what's important there is not trying to force uptime. And by forcing uptime, I mean stuff like even looking at this Reaper and especially committing this bubble. Again, committing bubble, committing jump is telling you and your team and the enemy team that this is where you're committing some amount of threat. Either your presence, the follow-up potential from your team, your own damage, whatever it is. this is you committing. Reaper is
Mm-hmm.
so happy to see your bubble used and just like walk it away. He knows next time he tries something like this, you're not going to have bubble for the next 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So don't even take these fights. Don't take fights you're not willing to finish, I guess.
Yeah.
And if needed, tuck tail and run. But in a situation like this, all you have to do is literally just like back up, LOS the Reaper. He's again, if he chases you, then he becomes punishable. But when he's just hitting you in the front line, when you're the first person he sees, he's the first person you see, there's nothing your team can do about that. And obviously, you know you don't want to take that duel, so it doesn't make sense to commit anything there.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, give yourself more time, back up, avoid damage. Don't focus on always being in the front line. You're not Reinhardt, so you don't need to play like
I
him.
know.
You're not
Yeah.
even Ball. You don't need to always be in the back line either.
So they're playing a lot more patiently
Exactly.
for it.
All right, we've got full cooldowns. We've got our primal coming up. We've finally managed to reset our team's position. We're Valking right now. We forced the Reaper out. This is the best hold we've been looking at so far. So I'm going to ask you right now, what do you think is your goal right now? What is your best play to go in and make something happen right now? This is a good setup. Like we said, we stopped the snowball. Everyone's alive for the first time in a while. And we've got cooldowns to go aggressive with. So what do you want to do here? What would be the picture perfect play
So
right now?
first, picture perfect is a support player is out of position that I can dive on and finish off. So like the Ana, I can get away from her team and avoid the sleep. The second one would be trying to just getting a squishy in general, or
Mm-hmm.
and if they're not easily, if it's not guaranteed, just trying to corral the team. So like just looking at this, the soldier, if like
Mm-hmm.
seeing him on the far end on the high ground and getting him off that high ground, um, and forcing him back to go back to his team. So even though I don't get the pick, I've cleared off high ground. Um,
Yeah.
but is that the biggest threat right now? I
I can't. It kind of depends on what tempo your team is playing. If your team's looking to fight right now, you could even just like drop on the Reinhardt and bubble him and help your Reaper just walk at him, kind of thing.
yeah. Okay.
Of course, if we do that, we need to be aware of the soldier's damage and we need to make sure we're using the bubble and then we're getting around this corner and then start using these boxes for cover and stuff like that. But it's a very high tempo play. It's the go button play. It's just
Yeah.
dropping on them, zapping three people, putting your bubble up to help aggression. This, I would say, is probably not optimal, especially for a ranked setting. If this is 6-man scrims and we're calming and we're like go 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 rush ride, then of course
Yeah.
that's what you do. But yeah, in a standard situation where we're holding them, we're still waiting for our best reason to go aggressive. I really like this jumping soldier play to help, again, set up the best situation. The best situation still might not be possible yet, but we still want to be active in creating that situation by, I mean, even just like taking this space is step one. Step two is like denying an enemy angle. And then step three would be collapsing onto the team once they're grouped as six, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really good staging. Arguably, again, I think you could go heavily aggressive here if you wanted to make a primal play. If you wanted to get this Rhine out of position, if you wanted to punish people like Lucio Mercy on the ground, maybe this Reaper, maybe force him to Wraitha, things like that, you could drop on the ground right now, knowing your team is available to follow up, even if they're pinned down a little bit by the soldier. Hopefully, our soldier can threaten them. Hopefully, we have enough healing to survive his damage, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully your diva can also help mitigate his damage when she gets her mech back. But you're helping engage the fight as the main tank here by taking as much attention as early as possible, and again, like easing your team's way into the front line. Again, since this isn't a normal map, there's no flank setups. We just have to kind of run it down in a
Mm-hmm.
situation like this, so it's
Yeah.
not ideal, but it is still very workable, especially with ultimates to use. And in a situation like this, Primal can be used just to keep people here in this potential kill box for our team to engage into as long as possible. So you drop down behind them. If they start turning on you, rushing you down, stuff like that, then you can primal, then you can start booping people around, booping people into the open, and then all of a sudden they're Rhine shields in Africa back here, and then they can't shield anybody, and then your Reaper just walks on the Lucio and Mercy.
Yeah.
Best case scenario in that kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Best case
either
scenario.
way,
Yeah. Okay.
the critical thinking here is how aggressive do you want to go and how quickly. Do you want to help set up the better engage by jumping the soldier, forcing him out, and then engaging on the team, or do you want to force a fast engage, knowing that the enemy team is also trying to set something of theirs up, and you want to deny that before it happens?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's just making sure we're going through this decision-making tree. Again, we take in the information. We know our team is alive and well. We know we're using an ultimate like Valk to help our momentum. We know we have Primal coming up. We also know they have threats like this soldier who might go uncontested. And we might even know he has Tac Visor in this fight. We know we're probably not going to get a kill solo onto these 3 members, especially with both supports
Right.
available. So we know we
Yeah.
need follow-up from our team to guarantee value. So there's no right or wrong answer, like I said. What's important is having an informed decision. Again, going through the information, processing, and execution of a decision-making tree.
Yeah. I think I go.
So yeah.
I'm pretty sure I go for the soldier. On
All
this
right.
one, just when I notice him.
Let's take a look.
We'll see. Maybe I don't. Oh.
So
think I
attack
hear it.
visors.
Yeah. Oh, he.
Biggest thing here, we took too long, right? I
Yep.
mean, I'm sure you can see, like, your diva dying early is
was-
her own fault. She had remake available. She was going for something funny.
Yeah.
That's not your fault. There's literally nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
But going aggressive on the soldier at that moment, we pinpointed here, knowing, for example, like, if you dive this soldier, worst case scenario, like Lucio comes back, Mercy comes back, and Reaper TP's back, maybe Winston counter dives. Like, that's worst case scenario for you individually, but also, like, very good for your team to help them walk up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that this wasn't very threatening for you to do, especially with Primal, especially with even just jump and bubble available. If you want to get more aggressive, you could even do something like jump down on the ground and then jump on the soldier short range, assuming no one like turns to deal with you and stuff like that. You can just be this little snake in their back line, catching them off guard with jumps. You can also do
Yeah.
things like start falling off and then jump midair to like offset your momentum, make you harder to hit, stuff like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
we just
Plus-
took too long making this decision, and then their soldier found an opening before we were able to do anything.
Yeah. So indecisiveness was a
Mhm.
big problem here. Okay.
If we are purely reacting to things when going aggressive, we're going to have a hard time surviving. So the only time we should be reacting to something and going aggressive is when we haven't had any other options or we're purposefully playing slow. So again, if we were purposefully playing slow and we're waiting for them to round the corner, then jump behind them and primal them in or something like that, that's a good time to wait for an aggressive play. Because we were already staging here, we already had set up like this line versus this line. It was pretty clear that we weren't ready to kite back defensively because you as a main tank weren't here supplementing this space. We weren't looking to counter dive from here. If we were looking to counter dive, we'd probably either be back here sooner or we'd be like on this bridge looking to drop on them. We were looking for an aggressive option, but then we missed our window. That's really all that happened.
Yeah. Okay.
And then yeah, now it's awkward because they just committed ultimates and we're down one.
Now I'm trying to just touch.
Oh, we're down
but
more than one
it's
now.
already Lost. Yeah.
I would say probably a wasted primal here, seeing
Yeah.
that death blossom in the kill feed. I understand a little bit of panic here. And at the very least, we got Shatter out. But yeah, this is very much just not like a panic primal, but like just a stalling primal that's not expected to find normal primal value of displacement
Yeah.
and isolation and stuff like that. So understanding that when you are doing a quote unquote low value primal, your team needs to be in good position to supplement that. The only thing you're getting for your team is time and attention. So if your team can use time and attention, that's great. If not, you're just going to be feeding a lot of
Yeah.
ult charge and you're not going to be able to do much.
Yeah. So I should have just backed out, not even primaled.
Yeah,
Held
as
it
soon
for
as
the
that
next part.
blossom came out, I mean, you could like jump on cart and die on cart, but I think just don't commit the primal.
Yeah.
Save that
Okay.
for third point. All right, good
Oh,
setup.
this is like the worst play of the entire match.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And why is
think-
it the worst play?
Well, I get pressured,
Oh.
and yeah, I just straight up jumped in. I thought
So-
it would be a great time, let them come through, jump their back line, everything, but they found me, and then yeah, it
Mhm.
just went snowballed from there.
Yeah, this is very much a panic engage because you got pressured out. Again, if we were thinking with a level head here, playing a little bit more patiently, taking time to breathe, we would recognize that, hey, soldier poking us out from here, jumping into a Reaper on cart, getting jumped by Winston, is probably not reason to go aggressive. If anything, reason to jump back, maybe land on this bridge, right?
Yeah.
Biggest thing by far is like the area our team is able to influence stops right here. And we are jumping so far into enemy territory that
Yeah.
there's literally no chance of survival. Even if you had Primal right now, your team still wouldn't have enough time to follow up. This is a very, very aggressive play. And the biggest thing is just 10 seconds before this, when we're thinking about this play, where's your team? Just turn around and look.
Just
How
know where
many of them
they're
are
at.
dead? Hit tab. There's 3 people dead right now. How long is it going to take them to not only spawn, but then get in position to supplement this play? Probably too long. So if you get any amount of pressure, um, you need to understand what your timeline looks like. And the biggest thing here is just add that patience, take a breath, and yeah, just literally use your camera to wall hack your teammates' positions and understand what their potential is at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can sort of get even like just getting seen by that soldier right there should would for
Probably
me
should have pulled
trigger like
out.
a defensive movement. Just like jump back here. You've already
Yeah.
given up like your element of surprise, which was probably the best part of this position. And then knowing that we still don't have the follow up, we're not going to find the same opportunity window we were hoping for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to be fair, you took attention. You did what you
Yeah.
set out to do.
Right. I
It's
got the
just no one was
attention.
there to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Or even just jumping across the way to the high ground that they have to
Mhm.
that ends up getting behind them. And then here I jump down because he's got window. I'm like, I can
Mhm.
my timer is a little bit longer, supposedly. If
Yeah, absolutely.
so
At the very
I
least, it is in this hallway. Maybe not around the corner, but in this space, you are unkillable.
little high
Not
yeah,
literally, but yeah,
right. I can frontline more, but kind of I was trying to
exactly.
use that to
You
my
can be
advantage.
aggressive. A good way of thinking about this is anytime any resources are used in your favor, it adds to your advantage state. And the longer you stay in advantage state, the longer you can stay aggressive. So
Okay.
another way of
Yeah.
thinking of this is when you dive a target, how long you can stay on that target depends on, well, one, if you kill them, that's a pretty big advantage. How much damage you're able to mitigate with your bubble, how much healing you get from your supports, how much healing they're getting from their supports. All these things add into who's going to win. So ultimates and team play into that very heavily, of course. We're using 2 big ultimates right now to guarantee that this space is now ours. That doesn't mean that we can carry this advantage into other space. But what
Yeah.
it does mean is that we can continue looking aggressively as these resources are playing out. So until these ultimates are over, we are at advantage.
Yeah.
And unless they use ultimates to counter us, or unless we like die or something crazy, we should be confident walking up, frontlining, like you said, knowing that we have all this support. It doesn't mean we just int into their backline or anything like that, but it does mean we get aggressive during this moment, and that's
Yeah.
really, really good. I was actually going to say, I wish you had jumped more aggressively than up here. So we were actually on the ground, about to jump, when these resources came out. And I know you can't hear audio on your end, I apologize for that. But right here, they just valked, we just popped tactical visor, we just windowed as we're jumping. So even just hearing enemy valk and hearing our tac visor, we should know a team fight's coming, right? We should
Yeah.
know something's about to
It's
happen.
time to go.
Whether
Yeah.
that's an enemy ult or one of our ultimates, or if a kill happens, we need to be thinking team fight brain, not setup brain.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, again, we're working off of a decision we made before taking in the information of the actual team fight. We're almost like playing by a script right now. We're coming out of
Yeah.
spawn. It's like, okay, I'm thinking about these high grounds, and this is good. This is what I told you to think about before on second point, right? This is what I told you. You should have a decision-making tree in mind, but the longer it takes to make that decision, so even the time it took to walk out of spawn and get right here, information's changed, and you
Yeah.
need to be able to take in that information to make the best decision in this moment. And in my opinion, the best decision in this moment would probably have just been to jump the corner right here and go as aggressive as possible to
And
help
just
supplement
hold
your
it.
tac visor.
Yeah.
You still have good positioning here, even if we weren't committing ultimates. Like even if Valk wasn't used, tac visor window wasn't used, this is still a corner that they have to round. So we have really good potential to zap them here at the corner and then back up around here if we have to, or just back up into our team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I should have been more active in general
Mm-hmm.
on that one than just trying to set up on the bridge and then wait.
It's hard to pinpoint these mistakes, especially in game, because you're not making a decision and then that decision turns out to be bad. What's happening is I don't want to use the term autopiloting because it's not quite what's going on. It's you're almost like you're playing by a script. You died just earlier. You're in spawn. You got opened your mailbox. You got today's episode of Overwatch
Yeah.
Daily ready to go. You know what your job is, and then you go. You do your lines. You perform your acting, and then you go for the next one. That's not how Overwatch is played. This is improv comedy at best. right?
Yeah.
So we need to play off of each other. We need to see what our teammates are doing and then react to that and continue building off that momentum as well as react to our enemies and things like that. So again, I can't stress enough how important taking in that information and making sure you process it before arriving at your execution. Because what's happening right now is you've made all that choice before getting the relevant information, and then you're processing it as you walk up, and then you execute it on last week's news, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, biggest thing is just being more flexible and being more open. And that's an easy thing for me to say and a very hard thing to actually implement in game. It's something that comes somewhat naturally with time and comfort on specific heroes or in specific compositions or even on specific maps. But to target it directly for like a coaching session like this is a very, very difficult thing. All right, coming into this fight in overtime, I love this jump on Soldier for so many reasons, and I wish we saw something like this just like we did on second point a little bit sooner. So this jump is good for obviously lots of reasons. One, we're guaranteed the point touch with our spawns, and with having another main tank like Reinhardt, we know it's Reinhardt's job to touch here, not yours if both of you are available.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
have the reach to go punish the soldier that no one else does. So you're doing the job, you're doing the dirty work no one else can or wants to do, which is awesome. This is also a unique situation for an overtime fight. And I know it's not literally overtime, but when the card's about to cap, I just call it overtime. Um, where if all you do is fight for the cart, you're almost guaranteed to lose. If all six of you just run to the cart, unless you guarantee good big kills, you're never going to win that fight. You're going to be stuck doing damage into tanks. You're going to be booped around by Lucio. You're going to be Reaper's going to fade away and survive,
Yeah.
and all your efforts are all just going to fall just barely flat. And the soldier is going to be playing aim labs up on the high ground.
Yeah.
So taking away this threat is part of our win condition. And understanding how your role fits in. This is something I actually usually tell the DPS players, not often tanks, but definitely applies to like Winston's and Wrecking Balls, for example, where it's not enough to just survive or to play to not lose. We need to play to win, and find our win condition here is really, really good.
So with the win condition, another one, just what should I keep pushing that soldier or get back to my team now that I've cleared the high ground off? Because
Now that he's on a single angle like this, you know what's
Mhm.
great about him being on the low ground? Your bubble and Ryan's shield become infinitely more valuable because they can't get shot over.
Okay.
He can't sit up here. If your bubble's right here, for example, he can't shoot your backline over here anymore.
Yeah. So I could take him out of the game pretty much by just dropping
Exactly.
down and bubbling.
Yeah.
If I did that right here.
I mean, don't think of it literally this way, but you can almost think of it like you have killed him. You don't need to do any more
Yeah.
work to disable him.
Is-
I mean, the ultimate disable is literally killing him. But this is the next best thing, right? Just making sure that he doesn't do anything relevant.
Yeah.
Eventually he will. If we still take too long, like if we don't get any kills during this window, and your bubble expires, like yeah, he'll come back online. Or if he sprints all the way back up to the high ground, yeah, eventually he will come back online. But the same thing could be said about a death. Like eventually they will come back, right?
Yeah.
So it's just amount of how much time you're buying for your team more than
Okay,
anything.
That makes sense.
So yeah, this was really, really good. And yeah, really good bubble. And then we're back on point. Oh, that's a big blossom though. That's
know.
really unlucky. That
Yeah.
really just, you did everything right there in my opinion. It just came down to them having stronger
the
and more
ults.
ultimates.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they used like literally 5 ults there, which I could coach you up for the next 3 months, and I can't tell you how to deal with 6 ults on the enemy team.
Yeah. But this is like super helpful though, just knowing like which decisions, like, okay, that's, even though it didn't work out, it's like that was good. It's just things out of control, like a blossom and all these other, and beat and all these things came out. And that's how they won.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like I said, especially for main tank, it's probably somewhat discouraging to hear, but it is very hard to actually assess these problems yourself in game. So I really highly recommend anytime you have a game that feels either like really frustrating or you felt like really confused. I really recommend, even if it was just like a complete stomp, you got completely 2-0'd, 100-0, both Koth maps, something like that, and you just felt completely powerless and your team was just absolute trash. Even in those situations, I'd recommend one, taking a mental reset and taking a breather
Right, yeah.
to make sure you're not tilted into the next one, but reviewing those games to see what more you could have seen. Even if you're just getting absolutely demolished, there's always at least 1 or 2 things your team is doing that you could be playing around a little bit better and maybe turning the worst case scenario into a slightly better one. Even if it means you're still losing, there's still a little bit more you could be doing. And this is what's going to help train your decision-making process. I don't care about your mechanics right now. I know we're talking about monkey mechanics aren't the craziest thing,
Right.
but I don't care about like your jump mechanics. I don't care that you weren't able to jump onto the ship on second point there. I care that it's taking you a little bit longer than it should to arrive at these decisions. And I care that you're not taking in as much information as you could be leading up to these decisions.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me right now.
That's
Any
why.
questions, thoughts about anything else on defense there?
Um, I don't think so. The indecisiveness
All right.
though is a big like definitely. It's just it's crazy how it's like it's very apparent just in like the gameplay itself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely something I struggle. And even with Ryan, until I got to a certain point, where I knew exactly what to do in certain moments, like with
Yeah,
information. Like I can see like that same gap that I had to eventually overcome in Ryan. So yeah,
for sure. These problems too are like a lot easier to fix in Rhine because you're not feeding if you hold shield a little bit too long. You know,
yeah, yeah.
you're not feeding if you miss a fire strike. Maybe arguably pin you'll be feeding, but stuff like jump and bubble, those are such limiting abilities if they're not used to their potential basically that it feels so powerless when you don't have them and then when you're not getting value out of
Oh,
them.
for sure. It's like
So
yeah, like
it's just that much more punishing.
yeah. Winston like relies on the cooldowns, where Ryan like
Exactly.
supports him more. Yeah. Okay.
You can think of it as the difference between like Soldier and Doomfist. Maybe not that extreme, but like Soldier
Yeah.
is more than happy to just sit around shooting his gun. Doomfist needs to think about 12D chess and how he's going to set up for the huge 6-man
I
rollout
know.
every single fight, right?
Exactly.
It's a lot more thinking, and the execution's very different. Even if they're both DPS heroes, even if you're both tank heroes, how you do your tank jobs looks very, very different.
Yeah. The style's so much different.
Exactly. All right. Moving into attack here. Again, running with the Ryan Winston. When running what I'll call a double main tank composition. So if you're running two types of either main tanks like this, um, especially when you're a dive tank with an anchor tank, it is fairly awkward to try and work around your tank. The two of
Mm-hmm.
you aren't going to be giving resources to each other. At best, maybe Ryan's going to shield you if you get slept by the Ana or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or if you get rushed down, you can run back to your Ryan shield. Or if Ryan's getting focused down, you can bubble him. But that's not what you're playing for. That's like worst case scenario. I need to live right now. Help me, other tank. It's not like having a
Yeah.
diva. It's not like having a Zarya. It's not even like having a Sigma in those kind of situations. So when playing around these things, what do you think is the most important resource your Rhine can give you?
That my Ryan can give me. Hmm. Um.
It's a bit of a trick question because it's sort of the same thing you're giving him.
I was gonna say, is it space? And
Exactly.
he's gonna be good.
It's space, attention, time, whatever you want to
Yep.
think about it. It's when they're looking at Rhine, they're not looking at you.
So the biggest error then playing with Orion would be trying to take the same space together because we don't really need to
Absolutely.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Top
So
marks, gold star.
okay, awesome, yay. So with the going to this bridge, then would that be that's the best thing that I can do to help my Ryan is because I'm just taking the space that he can't
He
really
can't.
take. Yeah. So
Exactly.
clearing that off. Okay.
So understand you're going to have less resources. Like you'd love a Zarya bubble right now. You'd love a Diva diving with you. So maybe this means instead of getting a kill or getting all this space, you just stop the soldier from shooting. That's still a success story. That's still a win, even if it doesn't look as flashy or as big as having a more all-in potential. Like if you're playing 6-man dive, you're playing Doom, Genji, Winston Diva, you'll just be running all over them through the entire map. But when we have these resources, obviously it means playing a little bit slower because we don't have the same aggressive potential. But it also means we play more flexibly and we understand the timing and value our Ryan's getting anytime we are looking aggressive. You can also think of this the same way as like the way you think about being an LOS of your healers or being an LOS of your ranged DPS, where
Mm-hmm.
you want to jump where they can shoot your target, obviously. And this is
Yeah.
easy when you have a tracer or a diva or like another flanker DPS or another dive tank, but it's a lot harder with more anchored members of your team. So you can do one of two things. You can do either going aggressive to help your anchors find space. And this is typically done when there's a key rotation that needs to be made. Like, say, for example, we've got the payload here, but man, we really can't push in. There's just so much damage. There's way too much to deal with. We need to go take this high ground. So maybe they're playing like, just imagine they're playing Soldier Hanzo up here and they're just peppering us with damage. To help make this rotation for your Rhine group easier, you can jump up here, bubble, and then back up. And even though you're not getting any kills, anything big, the rest of your team got this space,
Allow
and then
my
you can
team to
set up
rotate. Yeah.
Then you can go aggressive the next time together, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, the other way you can play this is almost like a flanking DPS yourself and looking to punish for attention on your Rhine. So, for example, if your Rhine's pushing the payload, again, similar situation, you could be setting up really stealthily, maybe like saving your jumps, saving your HP pool, maybe setting up over here, maybe setting up over on the coast right here, maybe even just like hiding in this high ground. And then the moment they commit anything to your Rhine, like say someone drops, then you jump up and deny any follow up. Or if there's just like one person left up here, then you harass the hell out of them and
That
make it
makes a
hard
lot
for
of
them to
sense.
support their
Yeah.
aggression onto your Rhine.
Yeah. And
Biggest thing with both of these, your Rhine is doing something during your time of aggression, whether
yeah.
that's moving himself or taking attention himself.
So
Make sense?
yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And like I kind of do that with Winston as a main tank without a Ryan when like they're running Ryan and he jumps off high ground. I like cut off
Mm-hmm.
the rest of his team
Yeah,
before they can
exactly.
jump off, and it's just applying that same concept right to
Yeah,
with my
for
Ryan
sure.
for something like that because he can control the space down the bottom. He's going to be just
Yeah,
fine.
he's under no threat if he doesn't want to be.
Exactly.
If he's able
Yeah.
to hold his shield, if he's good HP, if he's got supports himself, he can just focus on maybe even turning that into an aggressive moment if you're shutting down sort of the supply lines leading into that fight.
Yeah. So the first thing I should probably, if playing Gibraltar and the other guys running Ryan, is to cut, get in comms and just be like, hey, high ground, that's my job. You clear anything off low ground. Like it's
Honestly,
probably
like even
overly
without comms,
simplifying it,
like
but
just doing these jobs, they'll eventually learn what you're doing, right? And they'll eventually start playing around you as long as you're playing around them. As
yeah,
long as they're able to play around you, they will try to, unless they're just AFK or not paying attention or really focused on something else or something like that. But like
yeah,
if you're jumping up here and your Ryan's over here, for example, with Soldier, and all 6 members turn to focus you, if they see like a Sigma just turn around or a Lucio speeding away, of course they're going to walk up. Of course they're going to start shooting them in the back, right? Why wouldn't they? They want to have fun. They want to get kills too. So why wouldn't they find those reasons to go aggressive?
yeah.
As long
So
as they're available for them, like I said.
yeah, but it does seem like really strong with Ryan Winston on this map, where Winston is just clearing off high grounds, getting up there, taking the space there, and then Ryan is like, if you try to contest cart, I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
just wail on you. But like it doesn't get played that often, right? Just Ryan doesn't usually get used
Yeah.
that way.
The
I guess
hard
why
part
do they
about
not do
this
that?
is like because all these resources are going to be committed individually, namely your resources, there's no one to dive with you. It becomes harder at higher levels to actually even get little things done individually. Like even diving like a solo
Gotcha.
soldier becomes a lot more punishing at higher
Yeah.
levels where they're hitting more shots, they're more lethal, and they're also playing better space, so there's less people to punish, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's why you typically need more resources to overlap with each other rather than spread out.
Yeah.
This is the same reason, like, for example, double off tank compositions, like, say, Roadhog Sigma, became really popular for a while, but when they don't work at the highest level, they start falling out of popularity. Like, they worked for a little while when Roadhog was buffed like crazy last summer,
Oh, that was
and they
insane.
were even played in the Overwatch League and stuff like that. It was
Yeah.
crazy. But in a normal setting, double off tank is good because it capitalizes on chaos. If you're focusing the Sigma over here, there's a Roadhog in your backline killing your supports. If you focus the Roadhog, he vapes and walks away, and then Sigma's pushing in and rocking your supports. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to deal with because there's so many things, but a coordinated and higher level team will just say, oh, we'll just 6-man rush the Sigma and then run away from the Hog.
Yeah.
It's harder to punish them when they play more coordinated and also when they're more lethal because they're hitting more shots.
Yeah. The thrives on the chaos. Right.
Yeah, exactly. The chaos of mid-ranked
Oh,
good luck.
low elo.
Of the
Yeah.
middle ranks. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, we are coming up on time, but I want to watch. You mentioned you get held on second point here. So let's watch at least as much as we can of first point, these
Okay.
first 4 minutes or so, and see how we do. So this is the dangerous part.
Yeah.
One, what more information could we have looked for before doing this jump?
Where's my team at? Where's my Ana at specifically?
Your Ana, and I would also add your Rhine into that. Just because you are such disconnected resources, you need to make sure that your other tank is doing something. Because obviously you're not expecting him to.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe it'd be sick if Ryan could how Doomfist diagonal punches. If Ryan could do that with chargers, like off the payload and then like end up on high
Oh,
ground.
that would be awesome. Like he gets a jetpack on Overwatch
Yeah, that'd
2.
be sick.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe in Overwatch 2. But until then, you're not expecting him to follow you up here, right?
Yeah.
So think to yourself, what other value can my Rhine be getting in this moment that's going to make this a better value play? And another way of thinking of that again is, what am I creating space for? What am I taking attention for?
Yeah, because
And right now, it's for maybe a little bit of ult charge to get some damage, and then you're gonna bubble, and then you're gonna fall back, and they're all still gonna be here.
So really, like, I guess to follow up on that, turning around, seeing my Rhine on the cart, my Ana is like the safest place she could
In
possibly be in theory. And
mhm.
so like they're not pushing the cart, like they're not contesting. So there's no point of even jumping in there trying to do anything because they're not doing anything to stop us either.
Exactly. We're rushing right now.
Yeah.
We're playing very high tempo without a reason, which means we're rushing. We're over
Yeah.
aggressive.
That makes
When we
sense.
have a reason, that's just a dive. That's aggressive. That's just aggressive play. But when we're going aggressive too early without our key resources finding value at the same time, it's arguably feeding. And yeah, we're gonna jump in. We're gonna get some zaps. Ooh, this was a really aggressive jump too. Oh, we just barely make
Oh
it out
no.
alive. Thank you, Ana, for the nade. Thank you, Ryan, for
For
the shield.
real.
And yeah, more than anything, this is the slow death of your team. I don't want to like make you feel bad in this moment or anything else. Obviously, a
Oh no
loss
no.
already
It's totally
sucks.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is like the first thread unraveling this tapestry of what our team was initially trying to do. We had such big ambitions before, but then even just this first set of cooldowns, reactively, we forced Ana's nade. We gave up position. We forced everyone onto the point to come and help heal you. We forced Soldier's
Just
heal
to keep
station.
me
I mean,
alive.
not much. But we lost cooldowns and we didn't take position. Anytime we're using resources and not getting anything from it, either like kills or a better position, we need to rethink why we did that thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the worst case scenario is if this team was really coordinated, they would literally be able to just walk up to you guys right now without you being able to threaten anyone. Like their Sigma could drop, they could start bullying your Rhine, the Reaper could be TPing. If they recognize like how much potential was just lost from your team comp, they should just be like walking at you guys right now and almost just finding kills for free.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We didn't die. We got our cooldowns back. We're setting up for the next one. Again, I love you're thinking so aggressively, and I love that. But go aggressive with good reason.
Yeah.
And another thing I didn't mention, by the way, is one of the best values your Rhine can get, or other members of your team, like maybe a Tracer or something like that, is payload pressure. Also a very relevant part of this map, as I'm sure you're aware. Where if they're playing all 6 up here and we start pushing the payload, of course they're gonna have to send someone either here or here to stop the
Eventually
payload,
there's
right?
contest, yeah.
Yeah. More than anything else, that's someone that's not part of this 6-man that we can then maybe try to capitalize on, either by isolating whoever drops the point, or like bubbling and going aggressive other people up here. And of course, since Ryan is a big anchor tank, any attention he takes on point, he'll be able to survive a lot longer than someone like you.
Yeah. I don't know why I just to help my healers.
Mm-hmm. So there was a bunch of little things we could have done here. If we wanted to get more aggressive, I would have liked to see you see one of 2 things. But that being said, you did opt for the defensive play and you bubbled for your supports, like you said, which isn't bad. It's just not as high potential, I would say.
Yeah.
So right here, there's 2 things I want you to notice. One is where your Rhine is. He's in front of the cart. He's still being annoying. He's still a decent amount of HP. You can see he's not like critical through the map and stuff like that. And 2, your Junkrat going for an aggressive play. He's not maybe the most ideal flanking DPS, but he is currently flanking and currently a DPS. So
Yeah.
he is expected to get some explosive value right now. These are both moments that you could capitalize on. You could, one, capitalize on the amount of attention going onto point and trying to solidify your Rhine's position by bubbling these people. Or you could be doing the same thing, but looking to play more aggressively for your Junkrat and maybe jumping like over here to cut off their escape. And again, like same thing, like
Yeah.
bubbling when you need it and stuff like that. So again, opting for the defensive play here, not your worst choice I've seen this game even. So don't worry too much about that, but just wanted to highlight there were some things here we could have capitalized on. Any thoughts about that? Any questions?
I don't think so. That all makes like a lot of sense though. It's the indecisiveness again, where I kind of picked the
Yeah.
thing that was nearby and to help
Yeah,
my
and
Ana.
safe.
Yeah, and I think I'm thinking too much about my Ana probably because like, I'm trying to like build her
Hmm.
nano up to get nano and like ultimate. When really I just need to keep it simpler. And oh, a Junkrat's putting pressure on them. Let's like
Yeah,
overlap that
let's
pressure.
find a reason to win the
Yeah,
game. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Yeah, like the Winston may kill the Ana, but we may kill their whole team up top, anyways,
Yeah.
or something
I will
like
say,
that.
I do think you just saved that Ana with that bubble.
Yeah, she was
Ooh,
struggling.
slightly
But
misjump there. I think you might have gotten a
yeah,
kill on the Lucio, and then, yeah, unlucky there, but that's just a little mechanics thing. I think you were holding S a little too long.
yeah. So yeah, that one I missed the jump. So I was definitely I was going for the Lucio because I
Mhm.
saw the Rhine on him. And then here
Maybe not
they,
as easily point and click as I mentioned earlier.
yeah,
So again, this is another snowball situation, and this is just ranked in a nutshell where people are like, okay, I died, but I'm coming back into the fight. But all of a sudden, oh wait, this is still a war zone I'm walking into, and then
yeah,
this happens, and then this happens, and we need a reason to regroup. So worst case scenario, if you need to, literally just sit and spawn in these kind of
mm-hmm.
situations. Or if you're bored of sitting in spawn, go start setting up in uncontested parts of the map. Like if you're over here and you're gonna pressure Ray Reaper, jump up here. What's he gonna do? TP on you? Okay, run away. Stuff like that. Like just
Yeah,
don't commit anything. Stay active, but don't stay involved.
yeah,
So start planning for the next fight. Start waiting to capitalize on someone getting over aggressive. Like this soldier, maybe if we were like up here a while ago, or maybe if we still had jump and bubble right now, we'd be able to maybe get a kill on the soldier and then punish them for trying to hold so close.
yeah.
But if we're purely thinking defensively, we should be just making sure we don't need to waste anything by staying in spawn or by just running around and kiting.
So any activity just to kill momentum. It's just like
Exactly.
yeah, because we're on our heels right now. They've got all the
Yeah,
tempo.
it's not about getting in and setting up a dive right now. We don't even have the space outside of our spawn to do that.
I
So
know.
we almost need to think about just fighting for space here. Like we were thinking about fighting for space here to set up dives here. Now the fight's moved over here, so our staging area is a lot closer to our spawn, which should make it easier, but doesn't mean we can ignore that part of the team fight. We still need to work our way through this space, so we need to play like it. Sounds like you just heard that Reaper jump up.
Yeah, I missed him.
I'm not sure if you just saw.
I
Oh,
didn't
there he
see him.
goes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's not up there. I guess he teleported somewhere else, and then he blossomed.
And yeah, again, like even like these zaps and these things like this is just like delaying your potential. This is fine. No one's gonna touch you up here, so you can sit up here no problem. And this is also like mental damage to the soldiers, thinking like, oh crap, now there's a Winston behind me that can drop at any time.
Yeah,
Or just kidding, he's going straight to the
he's
shadow realm from this Roadhog,
yeah,
so that's never mind. But yeah, like look how good this setup is compared to having to jump from spawn while still being equally safe.
yeah,
And again, this is what you should be prioritizing when you're struggling to take space, not immediately going for the finish line every time.
yeah. There, I
What are
think
we
my
bubbling?
did I have support up there? Was there someone up there with me? Can't. I was trying to like, oh, we're
I
like
guess your
let's push
Baptiste has
up.
been jumping up and down. The
Yeah,
biggest
but he
thing
jumped
is
down.
the
But
damage that was coming in was one going through the shield anyway from Winston, but also not relevant damage. And if we're using shield, the same thing for Reinhardt. If we're shielding irrelevant damage, we're wasting shield.
yeah,
And again, more
I didn't
punishing
even
with the
need the
bubble than
bubble.
with anything else.
Yeah,
Exactly. Even if this Winston just fully zapped you, like you didn't need to chase him to your death or anything like that. And also, like I said, the bubble wouldn't really help you. But yeah, you are more than safe even without bubble here. Oh, again, very, very aggressive. Even if we did manage to stabilize and force some of them back and find some kills, actually, this isn't the worst. I didn't realize our team was rotating up here. This is actually not bad for our team. Obviously, we'd love to have a bubble right at this corner.
yeah.
But other than that, that was decent tension, and your Junkrat got a kill for it. This is what happens when
Sweet.
even just like a slight
Just
sync up. It wasn't
yeah.
picture perfect, but the
But
attention on you meant they weren't able to look at Junkrat mines on the ground. They weren't
mm-hmm.
able to fully stuff these members over here with Sigma damage, stuff like that. So we just got barely enough time to find a kill on Lucio.
Yeah, so incidentally let my team rotate with my attention. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
You're
okay.
getting value and your team's getting value at the same time. That's all you really need to think about. A
Trying to
little bit
find the
lost with the
soldier.
primal.
Yeah.
That's okay. Biggest thing, like regardless of the slight mechanical misplays throughout this whole thing, you did what you were trying to do, which was deny value from that soldier and hold that space for your team. Notice how that soldier just tack visored with a Mercy Valking pocketing him, and he didn't get a single kill. Compared to previous points on the map where Blossoms are killing 3 people, tack visors are killing 2 people, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just about relevant attention. And you were there for the relevant attention, and now soldier dies for it. Nice little skirting out of that. I like the aggressive staging here. I think you pulled the trigger a little bit early. So looking at the timing and when you jumped, this is, again, a very common problem where you're trying to snowball as aggressively as possible, but realistically, actually, because their Reaper went aggressive here, this was perfect. But without this Reaper here, we're not really getting value from this bubble. We would have rather just slow push the cart, get past the Sigma, and then dive deeper, take high grounds, do something more aggressive eventually.
Yeah.
This is the fastest option, but maybe not the highest value option. That being said, like I said, this is completely denying Reaper's value because he can't get healed or helped by Sigma. So it's actually really, really good. But I don't think we knew that going in. It just happened to work out.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the Reaper. Oh, with Lucio's beat, so shouldn't my shield block off his beat from other people, or am I understanding that wrong?
So you're understanding it right, but you're misunderstanding beat. So here's the best way I can explain it. See these little ripples that come out from sound barrier? There's 3 of those. So each time those come out and they hit someone. So you notice Reaper got beat. Mercy did not get beat.
Yeah.
Was there someone else over here? But Mercy will get beat if he slides out. Okay, well, he didn't. So he got the Reaper inside the bubble and he didn't get the Mercy. So you see these 3 rings. Each time one of these go out, that's it checking for LOS, basically. So if he's hitting the beat here and then sliding out, by the time the 3rd wave comes out, he'll hit the Mercy with that 3rd wave, but not the first 2.
Yeah.
Oh, does he really?
Because I think the Mercy gets it.
Oh my god. So yeah,
but
that's a good case of like animations in Overwatch not really correlating to the numbers behind the scenes.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. It goes out in waves and it does multiple LOS checks for a sound barrier.
Oh,
it's the same way like May Blizzard ticks. Like you could LOS half the ticks, but then walk into it and still get frozen because it's constantly reapplying the freeze.
That makes sense then too. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm still trying to understand the LOS part for those ults.
Yeah, I think that Lucio was like pretty close to frame perfect for that beat actually getting the Mercy because that looked like the tail end of it. Beautiful bubble. More than anything, like you don't even need to get aggressive on these people. What this bubble is doing is denying any value for coming out of this choke point and denying all this space from the enemy team. Now we're just walking through them. Really good snowball. And I love that you didn't try to like jump in here yourself because we were already at such a heavy advantage. We were already winning this fight. You don't need to go crazy. You don't need to 3-man kill people in here. You can let your team do the work as long as you're creating the space. You did your job, and you don't need to risk anything extra just to guarantee this fight win.
Yeah.
And yeah, we don't even need to chase Sigma. Our attention is more relevant on point. And there we go. Now Sigma's doing his best. Like the weaved melees. Good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Simple stuff, but it helps.
Yeah.
This is the most patient I've seen you look all game. So I'm curious. I do want to wrap up the review since we are going a bit over time here. But I'm curious, like in this moment here, what's stopping you from going aggressive? Because this is in other situations where I might see you jump this Lucio, or jump up here to cut off this Lucio kind of thing, or start staging aggressively a little bit earlier. So obviously I like this, and I like because your team is still far back, your Roadhog's like back in spawn still, so is your Junkrat. So there's no one following me up here. It's just this is slower than I've seen you play, so I'm wondering if there's anything here that you're remembering or pinpointing that might be contributing to this decision.
Hero is just trying to make sure that their team doesn't get to my team, so we can cap. I'm just trying to cap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're still thinking about like the first point cap. Okay.
Yeah, and like my team, and I'm not going to jump out and dive. Like I've done it this entire game, but my team wasn't there with me. Like really for 2.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've got an analogy for you then. Anytime you're doing a normal jump for space, not for like a deep dive and you're killing your 6-man diving, stuff like that. Anytime you're jumping for space, specifically for your backline, for members like Ana, Soldier, Baptiste, and the like, think of them as capping them in an objective, and you're just holding the space for them. And the objective is whatever space they're rotating to. So if you're jumping here, it's not because we're getting kills, it's because we're taking this objective.
Yeah.
If we're jumping up here and we're rotating here, it's the same thing. If we're jumping up here and we're pushing the payload, even if we're not literally capping a point, we have some objective in mind, some team-wide objective, that is, and we are playing for that reason above our own individual reasons.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that'll stick too. Like little mini
Because I
points
can
to
see
cap.
you
Yeah,
already thinking that way right here, but I haven't seen that consistently. So I want to pinpoint this thought process and apply that more broadly rather than commit to a bunch of different thought processes for different situations. So try
yeah,
to think as not linearly because you still want to stay flexible, but think as simply as possible. And oftentimes that'll mean just taking more time to gauge the situation.
yeah. And I mean, it happens like that way when I play with my scrim team, like in Anubis, where we're playing in a dive tourney with Anubis, and it's the same with getting through that choke of just got to get through the choke. You got to get your honor to the high ground when you're attacking, and so it's like
Yeah,
you
that's
got to
your
cap
objective.
the high ground. Yeah, but it's a lot like thinking of it that way. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I think that'll stick. We'll
Yeah,
see.
for
I'll
sure.
let you know. But yeah,
And I
Anubis
mean,
like
like
so
you
that
could
way. So I'm doing it in some regard, like already. Like I just need to like reiterate it to myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a big part of that too is just like mentally unlocking your brain from tying winning to capping objectives, from the score line to kills specifically to
Mm-hmm.
individual value. Because those things are the dopamine rush, right? The nice little ding you get, the sound you hit when you hit a headshot, or like you hear the elimination sound, or you primal somebody off the map. That's the good feeling response. But
Yeah.
that's not what always wins games, unfortunately. And that's not what always makes you a better player. What makes you a better player is doing those things at the right time consistently and finding reasons to do those things as often as possible.
Yeah.
But if we're just always thinking about like do the thing, do the thing, do the thing, we're not going to understand why it's not working and we're not going to see the optimal time to actually do the thing.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and is a lot more consistent in play than just going by the main point.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like honestly, like you can think of it like in other ways too. Like this is obviously a very important map for staging and for setups because of how oppressive the high grounds are. But this applies to every map, and like you could think of it in terms of like the lore in game too. Like you can't attack second point until you cap first point. So we can't attack first point until we take high ground. Okay, we
Yeah.
can't take high ground
That's a good
until
point.
we stop them from spawn holding us. Right? Like we
Yeah.
can't do these things without the proper setup. So we need to focus on the first step, not the last step.
Yeah. That makes so much sense.
Awesome, man. I'm glad that's sticking.
Yeah.
I really think that's gonna make a really not immediate impact, but like a fast growth impact to your play. And everything I've said today has been pretty focused on just your decision making tree and taking in information for the most part, not about your actual execution. Just because, well, in order to critique your execution, we need to make sure it was like a good play in the first place.
Right. Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
so we'll get there. But for now, I want you heavily focused on that decision making, on number one, accounting for your team a lot more often. Every time you jump in, I want you looking back at your team and looking at least for one key member that's going to either you're playing for to help them or that they're going to be playing to help you based on their position and things like that.
Okay. Thought process. Only
All right.
in turning that into a routine and building a good habit with it.
For sure,
And-
man.
Yep.
And yeah, did you mention, I don't remember if we talked about it. Do you often VOD review yourself? Do you ever like watch your replays or anything like that?
Yeah, I only keep it to like 15 or 30 minutes, and I try to do it right before I hop into comp to like reinforce, oh yeah, this is the mistake I was making, or yeah, I'm still making this mistake, and to get
Yeah,
me in
for
like the
sure.
right headspace. But do you recommend anything other than that, like a
Yeah,
different
I mean,
way?
I don't want to give you a ton of homework or anything like that, but the one thing I would recommend is anytime you do feel frustrated about a game, or anytime you felt just completely powerless in a game, look back to see what you were missing. Because more often than not, when you don't understand something, it's just because you didn't see it on your screen.
That's a good
So
point. Yeah.
in a replay, you can fly around the map, see everything that's going on. So you don't even need to look at a whole map. Just remember, like, oh my god, I did everything right here. Why did my team feed so bad? Or I didn't know what I could do. It just felt like I couldn't get in at all. What should I be doing differently? Those kind of key situations, that can be like one or two team fights in a whole map. Try to look at those key moments if you can remember them from the game. Like go right into them after you finish that game or whatever it is, and try to pinpoint the exact problems in that scenario. And I can not guarantee, but I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be about the amount of information you have and about what you thought was going to happen and then didn't actually come to life.
Yeah. I'll definitely do that. Because the last week or so, it's been like a lot of frustration as I've been like tanking in SR. So that'll be a good idea. Get me a good mental break, and while also like figuring out what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
So cool. So quick question. Like solo queuing on comp, would you recommend that be better for Winston to try and be more accountable for his teammates without relying on his teammates as often? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm asking that right, but
Right.
would
So
it be better to group
the
up
best
or
advice I can
solo?
give is play. How should I word this? Play for what actually happens, not for your expectations. So what that means is you still anticipate, but you don't pre-act on your teammates.
Yep.
So, for example, the biggest thing I can say is you don't do anything that which, if it doesn't work out, or if you don't get nanoed, or if you don't get bubbled, or if you don't get whatever resource, if it gets you killed, just don't do it in the first place.
Gotcha.
So if you're thinking of a risky play that's very reliant on an outside resource, something that you're not in control of, try to limit those interactions as much as possible. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you need to touch the point in overtime and hope your Ana gets back to nano you or your Baptiste get back to lamp you, right? And you don't have a choice. But in optimal setting, as long as you have the time to make that decision, try to understand what your individual potential is and don't push that further until you see what your team is doing, until you see your team getting value, until you see tangible things like kills or better positions or ultimates coming through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wait for them to actually happen in front of your eyes rather than in your mind's eye about how the team fight, quote unquote, should happen.
Yeah. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
The way I phrased it before is like you play despite your teammates, not with your teammates.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. It's very Overwatchy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, all right. These are really helpful. So maybe I know I have like a third like follow up
Hmm.
one as well. So it'll probably be like 2 weeks from now. It's but
Yeah.
do
Only
you have
recommendation I have is like wait for yourself to start seeing your own progress and having start coming up with new questions to ask. We don't want to do another review tomorrow and just cover all the same stuff,
just you
right?
have all the same problems? That's a good point. Okay, so I'll be thinking about that then. But I think at the earliest it would be like 2 weeks from now. But I'll let you know. Like I can just schedule
Yeah, no
something
worries.
through the website. All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
everything is done through Metafy website, so it should be good. If
Yeah.
there's any time like you want to book me outside of my listed hours too, just reach out. Probably work something out.
Okay. Do you prefer time, or is that like your preferred time? Those slots in there from 11 to 6.
I've actually bumped up my time, so I can't start this early anymore. I've bumped them back an hour just because I'm trying to get onto a stream schedule at night. But I'm still
Gotcha.
figuring that out, so I have no idea. My Metafy schedule will probably change like every day for the next week or so until I figure something out.
Perfect. All right. Yep. It's easy enough to do it. All right. Thanks, man. This is super helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to
Uh,
hear it, and good luck in your games. We'll be talking
yeah.
soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Later.